This country was built on a distinctly American work ethic. But today, work is in trouble. We've outsourced most of our manufacturing to other countries. And with that, we sent away good jobs and diminished our capability to make things. American Giant is a clothing company that's pushing back against this tide. They make a variety of high-quality clothing and activewear, like sweatshirts, jeans, dresses, jackets, and so much more. All made right here in the USA, from growing the cotton to adding the final touches. So when you buy American Giant, you create jobs for seamsters, cutters, and factory workers in towns and cities across the United States. And it's about more than an income. Jobs bring pride, purpose. They stitch people together. If all that sounds good to you, visit American-Giant.com and get 20% off your first order when you use code STAPLE20 at checkout. That's 20% off your first order at American-Giant.com with promo code STAPLE20.
Empire.
Hello and welcome to my podcast. Do me a favor, subscribe to the John Conn Report wherever you get your podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. You can find us there as part of Empire Media, AMPIRE. Always much appreciated when you tune in, and don't forget you can read my work on ESPN.com. Also, for you Gold members, I'll be doing a private Zoom session again on Thursday night, 7:30 Eastern Time. Join me there. It's been a really good sessions, and I'm hoping you Gold members are getting a lot out of this because we're getting more and more to show up for these. Really good. We're getting some more guests to come on. We had Kevin Sheehan last week, a really good conversation with the handful of Gold members that were able to join, but we're getting more of that, and we're going to keep doing more guests, etc. So if you want to become a Gold member, go to the Empire Media YouTube page, see the word join, click on there, go from there. Anyways, looking forward to that as always. Now, today, what you want to tune in for is the news of the day. And there's a few big items, and I want to talk about the news, but also the impact of all these news, because that's what's going to affect the play on the field. The biggest one is losing receiver Noah Brown. I'm going to get to Marshawn Lattimore. I'm going to get to KJ Osborne, but you got to start with Brown because this was not what I think we were expecting to hear today when I asked Dan Quinn, hey, can we get a Noah Brown update? They weren't hiding anything from us. It's just that the question wasn't asked. And really, the only time we should have asked it is after and Quinn's press conference on Monday, because the day after the game, they didn't know how bad it was. But it turns out, as Quinn said, he suffered a significant injury in the win over Tennessee. And initially, they thought it was his ribs. Well, further tests during the bye week showed that it was actually his kidney. That's why Quinn said he'll be out for a while. As I record this, he has not yet been placed on injury reserve. Clearly, it's headed that way because, as Quinn said, he's likely out for the year. So anyway, just a really tough blow for Brown, who is having a good year, and for the Commanders, whose offense really was able to tap into what Brown offers. And so, just a significant loss as Jaden Daniels called him an impact player. And Quinn talked about his toughness and just how he helped, not just on the field, but in the classroom and just in general. So there's a lot of things that he added. And it's funny because I think I told you this, but I was talking to a defensive coach recently who has faced Washington this year, and I asked him about, just about McLaurin, the receivers, all that. Well, the guy that he really talked about more was Noah Brown. Not necessarily because he thinks that he's better than McLaurin and the best receiver, but because I think what he offered was something that maybe concerned some defenses. He had the size, he could make the contested catches, but he also was a good blocker. He also could run routes from multiple spots. And I think so he was a tricky guy for them to game plan against. And we saw him make some big catches this year for sure. The Hail Mary catch was the biggest. Now that was a unique play, but we saw some other really good catches that he had. And it's just a shame what he is doing because he was having a good year. And again, a very good addition from when they picked him up in late August to do what he did. He solidified that receiver position. Was he a true number two? He's not a T. Higgins or anything like that, but he was a solid player and he just added depth to the position. And if you remember, Dan Quinn would talk about using a rotation of guys for that number two spot. Well, because of his performance and because of what he could do, it certainly deepened that group. And also it quieted the talk about, well, who's the number two receiver, which was a big discussion before the season. Didn't mean that he was a that he had the firm grip on it for the future, but for this year, he had emerged as a guy that could really help them. And it's funny because the other thing, and I was talking about this with De'Ami Brown as well. But he and Noah De'Ami Brown and Noah Brown both could offer different things, and I'll get to De'Ami in a minute. But you saw in the last game, you saw Noah Brown serving as a lead blocker going through the hole. Like very few receivers can do that, but it was that physical play that he really kind of added as well. So he offered a lot for them, and is this. It's not the same as losing to McLaurin or anything like that, but it is a solid loss for them. As Quinn said, it's a tough loss for them. So the one thing is then you get into, okay, how do you replace him? And let's start with De'Ami Brown. In fact, I did ask De'Ami Brown about the situation, what it means for him, but also what he feels he's been able to show this year because he too has been able to show a lot. So listen to what he has to say. What's this chance mean for you? I mean, obviously you've been getting a lot of stuff and getting some good production, but you're going to, I would assume, get more of an opportunity now. What does that mean for you?
It just allows me to go out there and play, show the guys what I can do. And I think with the opportunity being presented, it just me being out there taking advantage of it. Because just knowing how the opportunity can be limited, just to get a little bit more, you always can do more.
What have you feel you've shown more of this year?
Physicality, run out the catch, and just being able to take advantage of opportunity and being grateful for the opportunity that was given. I think in the past it wasn't too many opportunities. It might have been like one or two a game, but I think with any opportunity that's given, it's a great one.
So what do you think you can show more of as we go forward here?
Definitely to be a complete receiver. My thing is I want to be able to show that I can run every route still at this point, and then be able to compete at a high level. So
they could they could get more opportunities for De'Ami Brown. In fact, like I brought up the pulling action, De'Ami Brown can do that too. So there are definitely some things they can do with their offense with De'Ami that they did with Noah Brown. They have some different skill sets. De'Ami can make plays down the field. He's not the same contested catch guy that Noah Brown is, but he's also a very physical guy too. So he gives you that element, which we've seen on those screens, et cetera. So I think you're going to see more of him. And then you see, the hard part here is not just losing Noah Brown, it's also the loss of Austin Eckler, because it's who's going to emerge as the other guy, the other threat. Zach Ertz has been fine. He's been solid. He's had a few drops. We know that. He's not a dynamic threat for them, but he is a guy that can certainly serve as a good underneath option for Jaden Daniels. But they need another guy who threatens a defense. And you have Olamide Zaccheaus. He's had some good games too. And you have Luke McCaffrey. We keep waiting for him to have something. As someone else pointed out, like you have guys like McCaffrey and tight end Ben Sinnott who have not really had, for being, top 3 round picks. You'd like to see more production from them. Now, in McCaffrey's case, he has 17 catches, and they can only do what they can't throw the ball to themselves, as they say. And I'm not even saying that they should have been a huge part of it, but now they're going to need more from somebody else, right? And McCaffrey gets playing time. He can block. He does do things, and he has been open at times. Now, he has a lot of his average distance of separation is pretty high, according to like next gen stats. Well, some of that's because of the routes he runs. But also there are times where he's been open. So could he be a bigger factor in the future? Yes, especially on some broken plays. And that could happen even Sunday against the Saints. So that's another one. He's another one to watch. And then, of course, I think the other thing that you do here is you're going to lean hard on the run game. And that's where it's good that Brian Robinson had another week to rest after returning against Tennessee and seeing what he can do. But he and Chris Rodriguez and Jeremy McNichols will be key down the stretch. I think relying on that run game helps put you in a better spot, like it did against Tennessee, put them in a really good spot on 3rd down. And when you do that, you control the ball, you control the game, you score 42 points. So I think like that's another way that you're going to need. It's not just replacing Noah Brown as a receiver, but it's like what the offense can do. But again, like one thing, when you see an offense that's really going well with the backs, those receivers are doing a good job blocking, and that's Noah Brown and it's De'Ami Brown. And I talked about McLaurin. I thought last game McLaurin was really good in that area. Other times he's kind of inconsistent. So that's something to, and McCaffrey's pretty good with that as well. Then you get into, and I think Zacchaeus as well. Zacchaeus is a massive hustler, but he's just not as big. The one thing too that is now we get into the KJ Osborne situation because they picked him up. New England cut him. Washington has him now, so that's a good addition. And it's funny because I was texting with some people who've coached him in the past, and like one person told me he's a solid, versatile receiver, can play both inside and outside. One coach said he sees him more as a number three than a number two. Well, if you're a number three here, it just adds some depth to the Commanders. Considered a little bit more of a possession guy. Again, can line up at all different spots, more of a Z. So opposite McLaurin in New England, only played in 7 games, wasn't very productive. They had a glut of receivers. They drafted a couple guys who were playing ahead of him. And so he just wasn't, there wasn't a spot for him in New England. In Minnesota, he had 158 catches over a 3-year span. And so he developed a nice rapport with Kirk Cousins. So he can play so he can help them. I don't know how soon he'll be able to help them, but I think he adds to the depth that they have. And one thing that Quinn talked about was they do feel like they have a pretty deep, or they have a pretty good group there. And I also have to mention Jamison Crowder because he's been the window for the 21-day. His return has been opened. He's another guy. Now he's not Noah Brown, but he's another guy who has a skill you can tap into. And that skill is he can win quickly off the line. They don't have a lot of guys who can do that. Crowder can do that. He's not going to beat you down the field, but he can get you that quick underneath little jittery bug type stuff that maybe you can get 6 or 7 yards to get 2nd and 3, right? That's very valuable. So I think like that's another guy to watch whenever they activate him. And I don't know when that's going to be at and how much would he be incorporated in offense? I don't know how much that is either. I think one other key here is with Cliff Kingsbury talking to people here throughout this year. One thing they really like that he does is he finds out what these guys can do. And I think we've seen that time and time again. He's willing to put guys in roles that suit them. Like not every coach talks about that. I can tell you, not every coach does that. I think Kingsbury's done a good job with that. So if there's a way to find something for Crowder to do, he'll get you there. If there's a way for Osborne to provide some routes that can help down the stretch, he's going to find that as well. So I think that's one thing to feel good about here, but it is a significant loss for Washington's passing game because I do think Brown was having a good year. And even after his year, I would have said that you still need to go out and get a strong number two. And I think the description of Osborne as a 3 more than a 2, I think you probably apply that to Noah Brown, but he was having a good year. And I think anytime you lose a guy when you don't have that and you're picking, creating, finding different guys who can fill that role, losing one of them definitely hurts. So there you go. Now, the last part is Marshawn Lattimore was a full participant in practice on Wednesday, clearly trending toward playing on Sunday at New Orleans. Just, I can tell you guys are pretty excited about getting him back because of what he has, just talking to Mike Samuelsville, Quan Martin. It's really about, just opening up various packages for the defense, opening up pressure packages for Joe Witt. Can you get more guys in the box? And when I was talking to Martin, he's like, he wasn't quite sure that was going to be the major impact. It doesn't hurt, but I think it's as much about having a guy on a side that you can trust. And for example, in practice, there might be a situation where he's got Lattimore over there. Well, he's going to focus his attention over here, especially if he knows Lattimore's in man. Now, if it's zone, you play your zone. You've got to play your zone. But if it's man coverage and Lattimore's over here, you can then, if he's in man, maybe they're in zone, you're going to shift your attention over here and help out over here. That's a big impact. So, but again, we don't know officially yet if he's going to play, but full participant, folks, that's a really good sign. And then the last thing is Andrew Wiley was cleared he's now out of the concussion protocol, so he'll be good to go as well. So, but the big news, of course, is Brown picking up KJ Osborne, and then Marshawn Lattimore, finally a full participant in practice. And for people who wondered how he looked, well, we don't see him really do a whole lot. Like you watch him warm up, you see him doing stuff, but that's about it. We're not seeing him turning and running and doing whatever else in practice like you would during training camp. But anyways, during those things, he looks pretty good. But the key is full participant. So anyway, folks, there you go. That's it for me. Again, you gold members, join me Thursday at 7:30 Eastern time for a private session. And then I'll be back on Saturday with my 5 things I think leading into the Saints game. Crucial stretch here, folks. Get ready for the playoff stretch, and we'll talk to you next time.